Georgia O'Connor here. Big up Julius. Ring IQ. Welcome to the relay.
Welcome to the relay. We're covering today's top boxing news.
Inoue versus Stephen Fulton for what were the super bantamweight WBC and WBO titles. Let's talk about the fight. It's not often that a fighter exceeds my expectations. I went with Naoya Inoue to win this thing, and I went with Naoya Inoue to win this thing by way of a points decision. I felt he would be the more effective aggressor in the match. I didn't anticipate that he would completely dominate Stephen Fulton, and not only dominate him round by round, but stop him. It was noticeable that Stephen Fulton was in fact the taller, much taller, longer fighter of the two, but not the stronger fighter. Going into what was the 8th and final round of this fight before Inoue closed the show, I had this thing about 7 rounds to 0 to maybe 6. 6 rounds in favor of Naoya Inoue, with Stephen Fulton only picking up 1 of those rounds, and it seems that I was on the mark. That's how the judges had it. Very much a losing effort for what was the defending champion, the traveling champion. In the first round, I think Inoue established his speed and his jab early. The very first punch that he landed in the first round was a stab to the body, a stab to Stephen Fulton's midsection. A very important punch, I think. A stab to the body. Whenever he goes there, that helps to take some air out of the tires and simultaneously keeps the opponent guessing. Is he going to go upstairs for a headshot or downstairs for a body shot? Naoya Inoue periodically went downstairs to Stephen Fulton's midsection with that stab to the body. Jab from the outside coming in downstairs, jab from the outside coming in upstairs. Naoya Inoue's jab looks a lot like an up jab, a jab that is coming from below. That might be a big part of why it's such an effective jab. It doesn't appear to be coming from the shoulder straight across. It does have the look of a punch that's coming from below, and that's probably why it regularly finds a home. That in tandem with Naoya Inoue's speed. He was the noticeably faster fighter of the two, and that was established in the very first round. That first round set the tone for everything. That Inoue was in fact the faster fighter of the two. He was in fact winning the battle of the jabs, even though Stephen Fulton was taller and longer and the naturally bigger fighter. He wasn't as effective with his lead hand as Naoya Inoue, and that Naoya Inoue was not afraid to get rough with him, get aggressive in those moments where they tied each other up. You saw Inoue hitting in the clinch, hitting and holding. Inoue, the challenger, established an early lead against the champion. Second round got off to a much faster start than the first. Inoue, realizing that he was the faster, stronger guy, decided to lay into Stephen Fulton early, landing a big right hand. Continued success with his lead, continued success with the jab, the up jab, sometimes referred to as the vertical jab. It has all the virtues of the uppercut. You know how uppercuts can sometimes split the guard because the guy don't see it coming? Well, that's the same virtue of an up jab. Because it's coming from below as opposed to coming across, guy don't see it coming. Very strong second round for Naoya Inoue that got off to a faster start than the first. Good combination punching in that round. We saw Stephen Fulton retreating, trying to keep this fight on the outside, trying to keep Naoya Inoue at arm's length, which grew more and more difficult to do because he wasn't having any success with his own jab. Being outlanded, Inoue throwing those combinations as Stephen stumbled around the ring trying to regain his footing. Trying for shots and missing. Naoya Inoue bouncing just out of range, just out of striking distance of Stephen Fulton's advances. First round having already set the tempo of the fight, the battle of the jabs. He knew he was winning that battle, and Stephen was losing. Perception is funny that ahead of the match, Stephen Fulton was viewed as the boxer, and Naoya Inoue was relegated to being the puncher, but it was the puncher outboxing the boxer. It wasn't like this was a competitive fight where both guys are having moments of success and both guys are picking up rounds. No, this was Inoue effectively out-hustling and out-muscling Stephen Fulton, being the stronger puncher, but also the better boxer. Being poised while he does it, very calm. Suddenly exploding on Stephen Fulton, who was unable to deal with Naoya Inoue's speed and power. You know, power, it's easy to interpret power. It's easy to take stock of it. You can see it right away, but Inoue's speed had its role to play. If he's winning the battle of the jabs, because he's quicker to the draw, it's an up jab, so Stephen doesn't always see it coming, and it's coming in hotter, coming in faster than his own jab. Offensively, Naoya Inoue gives you a lot to think about, but defensively, he's also a bit underrated.
He is.
Just staying outside of Fulton's striking distance, taking a half step back or a double step back.
Made Fulton miss a lot of punches in those early rounds.
The idea that Stephen was just going to hang back, shift his weight to his back foot, and set up counters on Inoue
Was established early. That plan was not going to work.
Rounds 3 and 4, you started to see Stephen Fulton show a little bit more moxie. Instead of shifting his weight to his back foot, hanging back to set up counters, he decided to step into his punches, trying to take it to Naoya Inoue, who in turn shifted his weight to his back foot and started countering in kind. The blistering speed of Inoue proved too much for Stephen Fulton to maintain that offensive assault. And before you know it, it was more of the same.
Things got very eventful in rounds 3 and 4. Stephen Fulton's effort to try to let his hands go more, try to take it to Naoya Inoue. Inoue responded to his aggression with aggression and was better at it.
Bloodying Stephen Fulton's nose.
Fighting him off, forcing him to retreat, then cutting off the ring.
Casual observer doesn't really know the difference between following your opponent around the ring and cutting him off, cutting off his exits. Inoue making that beeline to the opposing corner as Stephen shuffles his way there.
He's cutting him off. He's cutting off the ring, making it a very small, cramped place for Stephen Fulton.
Stephen, who at that point realized he can't shift his weight to his back foot and counter the guy, catch him coming in. He's too fast for that, but he can't really take it to him either because then he ends up getting countered.
Can't create space because the guy keeps cutting off the ring.
Can't match his foot speed, can't match his hand speed, can't match his power. Stephen Fulton was effectively outfought in every single area of the fight, every single area of the ring. In the 8th round, you saw Inoue close the show.
He touched Stephen to the body with the left hand, touched him to the body, then bring over an overhand right. Remember I talked to you about those overhand rights, how Stephen Fulton is susceptible to that punch.
Touches him to the body with the left, hurts him with the right, sends him careening down onto the canvas, and then finishes off by connecting with a big left hook.
Spelt the end for Stephen Fulton.
Still had enough fight left in him to rise to his feet, though not much else to give. He knew he's smelling blood, sensing that the fight is almost over. He pours it on, backs Stephen Fulton into the ropes, unloads, and the referee waves it off.
As Fulton collapses.
By making Naoya Inoue a 4-division champion. Just like that, once again establishing why he's called the Monster. I didn't know all of his power would carry into super bantamweight, but it appears that he is just as monstrous a puncher at 122 as he was at the lower weights.
They don't call him the Monster for nothing.
Thoroughly entertaining fight and a masterclass, an absolute masterclass from Naoya Inoue. I expected him to win, but I didn't think he would be that dominant.
And it's not because Stephen Fulton isn't a good fighter. He's a good fighter, one of the best at 122, but he's just got that extra.
That X factor, that added ingredient that separates good fighters, really good fighters, from really great fighters.
No stacked wraps necessary, as Team Inoue decided to satisfy Team Fulton's wishes and not stack their wraps ahead of this fight.
Because they don't need to. For anyone who is latching on to that narrative that Inoue's power comes from the way he wraps his hands.
How do you like them apples?
Really are no excuses to make, but a whole lot of stock to take of Naoya Inoue, the Monster, now the 4-division unified super bantamweight champion. Now addressing the Boo Birds ahead of this fight, this monumental win for Naoya Inoue, the guys who refused to give him any kind of credit, any kind of acknowledgement ahead of this fight on the premise that he had never fought an American fighter before.
As if the fighter being American somehow makes him a better fighter. In spite of all the divisions he's campaigned in, all the dominant victories over champions, reigning champions, some unbeaten, like Stephen Fulton.
You still had a collective substrata of individuals within the boxing community who refused to acknowledge that Naoya Inoue is every inch the fighter he's made out to be.
And some claiming that if you were picking Naoya Inoue instead of Stephen Fulton to win this fight, you don't know shit about boxing.
Comments that have now aged like so many avocados on so many breakfast bars across the country. Curdled milk.
Why are these people like this?
I want you to understand something. Going with Stephen Fulton instead of Naoya Inoue to win this fight is no offense here. You might have had your reasons. Maybe you just didn't think Inoue's power would carry.
Maybe you thought that Stephen was too big, too durable, too experienced at this particular weight for the smaller man, or maybe you were just rooting for the hometown fighter.
There is room for tribalism in the sport of boxing. In truth, there is room for tribalism in most every organized sport. But where it becomes toxic is where you start to disparage and slander the other man.
That's it.
Gross oversights about the other fighter, the foreigner.
Saying that he hasn't beaten anybody because he hasn't beaten someone yet from your particular neck of the woods, your country, or perhaps somebody that looks like you. That's where it becomes toxic. That's really where most of these morons cross the line.
When they make it about themselves and their own bigoted narratives and their own bigoted worldviews.
Their slander.
That collective of mongoloids who were expecting Inoue's power to evaporate on the premise that he wasn't going to be stacking his wraps, not understanding that the only reason they were stacking his wraps was to protect his hands.
Not to add power to his punch. Tape and gauze is not going to make you a stronger puncher.
But alas, you can't talk to these people. You can't get through to them. You can't fix stupid.
No one's trying to.
Ahead of this fight, wherever a group of individuals might have been congregating to discuss this fight and sing Naoya Inoue's praises for what he's done so far, you'd get this concentration of idiots who would crash the party and start disparaging that fighter, claiming he was nothing but a hype job, a cheater.
A hype job that Top Rank built, even though Naoya Inoue was already an accomplished fighter before Top Rank decided to sign him, before Top Rank even came into it. But these mongoloids, they can't be bothered to do the research before speaking out of turn. It's always the same.
And some claiming that the only reason that the fight happened was because Stephen Fulton pursued it, not realizing that Naoya Inoue petitioned the WBO for super champion status so that he could fight Stephen Fulton straight away. These morons!
These idiots can't be bothered to read a 2-minute boxing scene article to educate themselves.
But expect to participate in the conversation, having a seat at the table. Nobody really wants to be bothered with these guys. They know that. That's why they go out of their way to be seen and to be heard.
To barge into conversations that nobody's having with them, volunteering opinions no one asked them for.
You can't fix stupid. You really can't. The silver lining is no one is trying to.
I'm not.
Do you actually think this collective of bozos have learnt their lesson?
No.
Disparaging Naoya Inoue, talking him down, tearing him down. Do you actually think watching Stephen Fulton get dismantled taught them anything?
No.
If anything, this will further embolden their xenophobic views on foreigners, their own bigotry and prejudicial treatment of foreigners.
Foreign fighters.
Because you can't fix stupid.
You can't.
The offense here was not going with the hometown fighter, what they might deem as the hometown hero, to win the match. Nobody's right about the outcome of a fight 100% of the time. That's not the offense here. The offense is slandering the opposing fighter when that's not necessary. The offense is belittling the fighter and tearing him down.
Saying he's a hype job that Top Rank built when he wasn't always a Top Rank fighter. Saying he's using illegal wraps when his wraps aren't illegal.
Accusing him of blood doping when he's never failed a VADA test. Calling him a drug cheat.
These people are pathetic.
Insecure and uneducated on the sport of boxing, yet they've got so much to say about it.
You don't know shit!
So one guy claiming that Naoya Inoue is only popular in China.
Some dipshit that goes by the name Kevin Blue who don't know the difference between China and Japan, if you can believe that.
And these are the people that want to harp to me and you when we say Inoue is a pound-for-pound fighter, a pound-for-pound talent. Guys that get butthurt that the American has to travel for a change. Not that the American has all that much drawing power in America to begin with.
I mean, I got nothing against Stephen Fulton, but he's not a big draw in America, and I think he said that himself.
No, I don't think this collective group of mouth breathers learned anything at all. Learned anything from today's contest.
I'm just here to tell you, don't try to teach them. Don't try to argue with them. For what?
The smartest thing you can do when talking to a moron, if you want to prove that the moron is a moron, just let him keep talking.
They'll prove you right.
Morons will dig their own hole.
They will.
There's no need to mince words with these people. There's no need.
Nothing to gain, nothing to learn. Nothing, absolutely nothing to achieve but a cheap laugh.
Because that's all that these schmucks are good for. A cheap laugh at how stupid they are.
How funny it is that they don't know it.
It's all these grade A rubes are good for.
Attention now shifting back to the actual sport of boxing, as opposed to the bozos who think they know something about it.
The heels of his latest win, Inoue is keen on Undisputed Showdown versus Marlon Tapales. Let's do it this year. And it's entirely possible because ahead of this fight, the sanctioning bodies themselves,
The WBA and the IBF.
they stated quite plainly that they would keep the way clear for Marlon Tapales. They would hold out on ordering any mandatory challengers for him so that he would be free to fight the winner of this fight. I want to fight Inoue to prove myself that I am a great champion, Tapales said in the ring after the fight, respectful towards his newfound divisional rival. A clever grin graced the face of his intended target, who didn't waste any time to respond, nor does he want to waste any time to build towards the Undisputed Championship. Let's do this. This year, Inoue insisted.
The Japanese have a long-standing tradition of holding a big fight, a very big fight, on New Year's Eve. You might recall that Kazuto Ioka versus Kosei Tanaka. That took place on New Year's Eve.
The attention now shifting to yet another undisputed title fight for Naoya Inoue at what is his fourth weight. It's conceivable that the wheels are already in motion for Inoue versus Tapales behind the scenes, getting all four sanctioning bodies to play ball.
They've probably already got started on that. We know that at least two of them are already playing ball.
Marlon Tapales unseated Uzbekistan's Muradjan Akhmadaliev and procured both the IBF and WBA titles. I took stock of this fighter, and he does present a different set of challenges than Stephen Fulton did ahead of this fight. Marlon Tapales is a more offensively minded, bouncy fighter with some slickness and some athleticism.
He's a more ambitious fighter with his offense, tries for more punches.
For what it's worth, I do think he packs a bigger punch. I do think he has more firepower than Stephen Fulton. Stephen Fulton's bread and butter has never been strength of arms. It's always been his movement and his boxing, a more cerebral fighter than, say, Marlon Tapales.
Marlon's got more firepower.
But because he's got more firepower, he's likely to open up more on Naoya Inoue. And opening up more means you're open.
You're open more.
Open to be hit, open to be countered. The kind of hand speed that Naoya Inoue has is hard to prepare for. It's hard to find sparring partners that can duplicate those challenges. Inoue's power, Inoue's speed, his efficiency, the fact this guy doesn't waste punches.
He's accurate.
When you're opposite the ring, a big puncher, a very big puncher, and it appears that Inoue still is a monster, still is a monstrous puncher, that the power did carry from 118 up to 122, that he can still hurt guys.
Power and speed get respect.
You might have noticed in rounds 4 and 5 that Stephen Fulton was opening up more. Being defensive wasn't working, so he tried to be a bit more offensive, more aggressive.
That just got him countered.
Beat to the punch because of Inoue's form,
Speed.
because of Inoue's speed. That makes Stephen Fulton tentative to where he's inching closer to Naoya Inoue, but he doesn't want to pull the trigger because he's afraid of what's going to come back at him. That could be in play in a Marlon Tapales fight.
What is otherwise an offensively minded fighter may become tentative due to speed and counters.
I had questions. Ahead of this fight, I had questions as to how much of Naoya Inoue's power would come up with him to 122 pounds, given his age and his frame. I figured he'll still have enough power, enough to get respect, but I didn't figure that he'd have enough to stop Stephen Fulton, because he did.
He's still a knockout merchant.
He's still a guy you don't want to get too froggy with. He's still a guy you don't want to stand square in front of him.
Marlon Tapales, being an offensively minded fighter, kind of guy that wants to step into his punches and get something going, mix it up, it's conceivable that he could get countered and he could get stopped. This is a fight that could take place on New Year's Eve of this year.
Yeah, Inoue closed out last year by becoming the bantamweight division's undisputed champion. He could close out this one by doing the same thing at super bantam.